Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to Krishna Kathamritam program. This is the day 4 of our program, and we're just 4 days away from Janmashtami, which is on August 30th. This is our Janmashtami's pre-celebration program, and here devotees will read Krishna's childhood pastimes and narrate the pastimes to us and share their understanding and realizations. Today we have very special two devotees, Kirtan and Dhriti. Dhriti will present in the second half. So first, Kirtan will be presenting. He'll be presenting from chapter 31, Songs by the Gopis. And Dhriti will be presenting from chapter 39, Akura's return journey and his vision of Vishnu Loka within the Yamuna river. With that, over to you, Kirtan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, devotees. Let me share my screen. All right, is everyone able to see?
Yes, Kirtan.
Okay, Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna, everyone. Today we'll look at 3 verses from chapter 31. These are 3 verses that I thought were pivotal and useful for everyday Krishna consciousness. After looking at these 3 verses, we'll look at Prabhupada's purport and what I understood from the purport, and then we'll look at what we can take away from this and how we can apply this in our day-to-day life. So the first verse, Canto 10, Chapter 31, Text 1. Jayati te dikam janmana vraja shayata indra sasvadatrahi dayati drishyatam dikshutavakas dvavidakshvasas tvam vichinvate. Translation. The Gopis said, "O beloved, your birth in the land of Vraja has made it exceedingly glorious, and thus Indra, the goddess of fortune, always resides here. It is only for your sake that we, your devoted servants, maintain our lives. We have been searching everywhere for you, so please show yourself to us." So here, from this translation, we can understand that the Gopis are already bewildered that they're not able to see Krishna. And one thing that, before we get into the purport, one thing we can understand is that even though they're in such an elevated position, they're still coming down to let us understand, first of all, but also to show that this is not just an act they're putting on. Now, the second pivotal verse in this chapter was text 9. Tava kritamrita tapta jivanam kavibihiriditam kalmasapaham shravanamangalam shrimadatatam bhui grantite buhirdajanam. Translation. The nectar of your words and the description of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations transmitted by learned sages eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Certainly those who spread the message of the Godhead are the most munificent. So one thing to note is munificent means the most rich, or the most, the person who gains the most from the situation. This is important because this word creates the whole translation. In the material world, what we usually see is that if someone that has the most is the most rich. So here, what Krishna, or what the Gopis are getting across to us and what Krishna is showing is that what we have might not always be tangible, but it still shows the riches we have. So in the first verse, the Gopis have established that they're missing Krishna and his presence, and that they've stated that there's nothing greater than Krishna's association. So now we're left wondering why. So this text 9 tells us why the Gopis are hankering for Krishna so much. This text shows us that because Krishna is the greatest rich and the greatest opulence that one can have, not having him is very painful. Now, finally, the third verse I picked is text 17. Rahasi samvidam hrikshayodanam prahasitamanam prema vikshanam brahadurashriyo vikshadhamate muhuratis praha muyate manam. Translation. Our minds are repeatedly bewildered as we think of the intimate conversations we had with you in secret. Feel the rise of lust in our hearts and remember your smiling face, your loving glances, and your broad chest, the resting place of the goddess of fortune. Thus we experience the most severe hankering for you. So these gopis are acting like they're village people, but their analysis for this clause of why they miss Krishna is actually the perfect 3-point backing. So the first verse gives the prose or the introduction to why they miss Krishna and what they're missing. The second verse gives the evidence of why one should miss Krishna, and if you're not missing Krishna, you're missing out. And the third verse gives the conclusion or the consensus of why one should always be hankering for Krishna. So let's take a look at the purport and what we can understand from Srila Prabhupada's analysis. I'll read this first and then I'll explain. When Krishna's pastimes spontaneously arise in the gopis' minds, they chanted his songs, which relieved those who suffered from the burning pain due to separation from Krishna, and gave them supreme auspiciousness. They sang, "Lord, lover, liar, when we think of your smile, your loving eyes, and the hobbies of yours and your childhood friends, we get very excited. Thinking of your lotus face that lock, our black hair is covered with dust of cow, and we're irrevocably attached to you. We feel very painful when we think about how to use your soft heels to carry the cows from forest to forest." So this is a few lines from all of Prabhupada's purports put together in a way that established properly what he was trying to convey. What we can understand is that Prabhupada, even though this is a very elevated topic, Prabhupada put it easy for us to understand by saying, this is what we should be looking for. So Krishna's activities, so whether that is him taking his cows to the pasture, or him playing his flute, or associating with his friends, or Krishna's friends, or Krishna's devotees, or Krishna's features. So here Prabhupada says his eyes or his feet. And these are all things that the gopis are missing and things that we can use to strengthen our faith. So this is my analysis of the purports and what I think we can get away from them. I won't read into this, but you can read through this while I talk. So this chapter mainly focuses on gopi separation of Krishna. And a lot of times people, or including myself, don't really understand why we need to focus on this. But what we can understand is these are the people that are the top of the class. So whenever you're trying to get good grades on a test, do good on an exam, what you need to understand is you need to put yourself in the position of the smartest people in the classroom. And the classroom is this universe and this whole existence, and these gopis are the toppers of the class. They're the people that we should be taking advice from. So even though that we cannot materially imitate what the gopis are expressing, we need to understand that this is what we should be searching for. So all our material endeavors and our spiritual endeavors should be based on what they're practicing. So now is my favorite part is how to apply this in our everyday lives and apply this to our own Krishna consciousness. So there's many ways that Prabhupada and a lot of spiritual masters have talked about on how to establish this chapter in our lives. but these are the two that I found were most useful. The first is, without Krishna, everything is empty. So I'm sure everyone has heard the example that all our material activities are zeros. Like if we're amazing tennis players or we're really good in school, those are all zeros. And once we use that in the service of Krishna, Krishna adds a one to them. So without Krishna, there's no value. And we'll go back into why that's important. So this first point of the first topic is that all material endeavors should not be given up, but used in Krishna service. So many times this is emphasized very weakly, but what we need to understand is that what we're giving up is our attachment to these activities, not the activities themselves. So whether that be studying or material riches, what we should be giving up is not the actual activity of doing these things, but the idea that this is ours. We need to understand that in the material world, if we act as ambassadors for Krishna consciousness, then whatever we have is eternal. So real selfishness is when you stop doing something and you pretend like you don't want to do it and you're just focusing on Krishna. What this means is that other people will see that, okay, he's a devotee of Krishna, but that's all he has under his belt. So that's not how we represent Krishna consciousness. The second point is that all endeavors, both material and spiritual, should end in Krishna. So just because we're doing all these things and we have an excuse of saying, oh, these are all the zeros that I'm going to use for Krishna, does not mean that we have an excuse to forget Krishna. So the second our material activities start taking over our spiritual time, that's when we need to we should start giving them up. And even if that's giving them up on a material level and you're forcing yourself to stop doing them, as long as that means you're making more time for Krishna, it does not come under selfishness. So the final point is that if you want to keep something, you need to add Krishna. So these gopis really want to keep their love and affection. And because it's pure and it's for Krishna, it's unadulterated and always there. So if we want to keep something, whether it's material or spiritual, we can't keep it without Krishna. All right, thank you so much, devotees. That was Canto 10, Chapter 31, Text 1, 9, and 17.
Hare Krishna Kirtan, that was absolutely fantastic. I mean, you very melodiously recited the verses and you picked up 3 beautiful verses and nicely summarized how, they were missing Krishna and there's nothing greater than Krishna, and how Krishna is the greatest. And your realizations and how to apply is what it was wonderful. And I especially really like the point that, whatever we do, we have to have Krishna in the mind. We have to do it for Krishna. And when we are doing that, we should not forget Krishna. That's extremely important. It's either you do for Krishna or, it's something, don't do, like, just don't do anything for not Krishna. So beautifully shared the realizations. And I think especially very apt for now that Janmashtami is coming and we have so many services that we are doing, we all have to have that consciousness, that pure mind that we are doing everything for Krishna and serving Krishna. A wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Kirtan. With that, we will go to the next part. Now, Dhriti will be presenting. Hare Krishna, Dhriti.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna devotees, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Okay, so can you guys see?
Yes, Dhriti, we can see.
Okay. So Hare Krishna, I'll be summarizing chapter 39, Akura's return journey in his vision of Vishnu Loka within the Yamuna River. I'll start with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. I'll be summarizing from chapter 39, Akura's return journey in his vision of Vishnu Loka within the Yamuna River. Akura has reached Vrindavan and has been greeted dearly by all the residents of Vrindavan. As Krishna and Balaram went to meet, he began to think about how wonderful it is to meet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna went to Akura and asked about Kamsa's plan and about his family. He was sorry that Kamsa was a harsh and rude king. He was also sorry to his father that he had to lose his previous sons for him only. He also asked his purpose of coming to Vrindavan. Akura told how Kamsa wanted to kill Vasudeva and that Krishna was living in the house of Nanda Maharaja. Akura also told the story of how Krishna secretly moved to Vrindavan and about the demons coming to kill Krishna by Kamsa's instructions. Akura's purpose was to take him to Mathura to fight, as Krishna thought it was a joke. As soon as Nanda Maharaj knew that Kamsa was inviting everyone from Vrindavan for the Danu Yagna, he asked the cowherd men to prepare bullock carts full of milk products to give to the king for the next day. He told the chief police officer to invite them to also come. The news spread like wildfire, but as soon as the Gopis heard about Akura coming to take Krishna to leave for Mathura, they became more than unwholesome. They got so worried that they became very sick. As soon as they heard the news, they dropped anything they were doing and ran to Krishna as if they were running for their lives. As they remembered his smile, conversation, his characteristics, and more, thinking of separation from Krishna made their heart ache even more. The Gopis say that Krishna doesn't fully want to be with them. They think that he thinks of them as a toy to use and throw away after it's done or worn out. They say that you give us this beautiful person with a smile, with his hair, his forehead, and his nose, which are all attractive. They accuse him of being cruel through his name, which means not cruel. They thought of him as a nice man passing the city of Vrindavan, but he's a rude man who has come to take their eyes away by not letting them see Krishna. Now they accuse Krishna of Krishna. Now they accuse Krishna of agreeing to go with Akura. They say that he doesn't like to last a long relationship, and that he might be a friend, befriend the Gopis in Mathura, not even want to come back or not remember them. So they wanted for Krishna to not come back. So they thought about how the city of Mathura would see Krishna. They say that so they wanted for Krishna to not come back. They thought about how the city of Mathura would see Krishna. They say that Krishna, without considering a situation, has already begun to leave. He may be smart, but also not smart, to not rethink the situation. And also the older people has not also taken our arguments into considerations. The Gopis did whatever they could to not let Krishna go by asking for disturbances, such as a hurricane, storm, or a heavy rainfall. They have tried everything they could, so they take their last action, physically stopping them. After the rasa dance of us making fall for him, he tries to run away. At the end of the day, they would come back all dirty and always looking beautiful and exclaim, "How can we leave this person?" The Gopis cried all night before Krishna left. Morning arrived and the cowherd men, Nanda Maharaj, Balaram, and Krishna began to arrange things for the journey. Although Krishna told the Gopis to not obstruct the way, they surrounded the chariot and path with teary eyes. Was very much touched by their action, but he had to start to Mathura because it was told by Nanda Maharaj to Kamsa. He told the Gopis to not worry because he will come back as soon as he's done with his work. As the chariot began to leave, the Gopis' mind began to follow it until they only saw the dust. All the gopis decided that Krishna will never come back, and went home with a broken heart. On the way to Mathura, Balaram and Akura went to Yamuna. Anyone who takes a bath in the Yamuna will let go of all their sinful activities. Krishna and Balaram took their bath in the water and drank the water. They drank the water they took in and sat in the chariot. Akura also went to take a bath in the Yamuna river. After taking a bath, Akura stays half in the water and half out and recites the Gayatri mantra. While standing, he saw Krishna and Balaram. He knew for sure they were both sitting on the chariot, and when he came to look up, they were there. When he went back down, he did not only see Krishna and Balaram, but all the other demigods, Siddhas, Charanas, and Gandharvas too. On Lord Seshanaga, on him lays the four-handed Krishna form. Akura saw Krishna turn into Mahavishnu and Balaram turn into Lord Seshanaga. He saw the four-headed form of Mahavishnu smiling beautifully. His raised nose, broad forehead, and attractive ears, and his reddish lip all looked so beautiful. His arms going down till his knees were strongly formed. His shoulder was high, his chest was broad, and his neck was shaped as a conch shell. His navel was deep, and his abdomen was marked with 3 lines. His hips were like a woman's, those big and broad. His thighs were as massive as the trunk of an elephant. His other parts of his legs, such as his joint and lower part of his legs, were formed attractively. His nails were shining, and his toes were as peachy as they could get. His helmet was decorated with different jewels. He wore a sacred thread on his chest and a decorated waist belt. He had bangles on his arms. He wore ankle belts on his ankles. He had a beautiful body that can never be seen in the material world. The palms of his hands and feet were as red as an apple. In his arms he held a conch shell, club, disc, and lotus flower. He wore large garland around him. He saw Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Sanka, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanada, and Santa Kumara. Narada and Brahma offering prayers to him. Shocked and overwhelmed with devotion, Akura immediately bowed down to him, and with folded hands, in a humble position, he began to offer prayers. Thank you, devotees, and thank you, Prabhu and Mataji, for having me, for sharing, and for your time.
Thank So Veena Mataji had to leave for another meeting, so I'm covering for Mataji. So thank you very much, Dhriti, for the wonderful narration of the entire pastime of Akura's vision. What were the emotions experienced by transcendental emotions experienced by the gopis, especially, right? Akura's vision, what he saw on the chair, how Krishna and Balram, and of course Krishna's beauty also. Description of Krishna's beauty. So that was very nice, Dhriti. Thank you very much.
You, Mataji.
So with that, devotees will end today's
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Can you stop the live, please?